And welcome back to College Football Tradition, a history of American college football. We're now on the 1877 season. We're going to talk about a very historic draw in Hoboken that happened at the end of the year between, of course, our usual culprits, Princeton and Yale. So it was a matchup of high intensity in 1877. Fans and even other programs were beginning to take notice of this huge rivalry that was being developed in the Northeast between Princeton and Yale. So, a little context of the season: Princeton would defeat Harvard and Columbia to open the season, which were both good teams. Columbia was 500 and Harvard was above 500, while Yale started the season 3-0. They beat Tufts and Trinity College over in Connecticut, and Stevens, of course, who was on everybody's schedule. But none of those teams were really that good at the time. Princeton's opponents were slightly more established, but Yale's suffering defense and explosive offense, they really developed under Walter Camp at the time, who was just this formidable halfback. So they were just a more dominant team, although Princeton's strength of schedule a little bit more solidified at during the 1877 season. But then we get to that finale in the season finale on December 8th, and they played to a 0-0 tie. What do you think about that game that happened over in Hoboken, Jacob?
Man, well, you and I were talking about this before we started the episode today, but I just find it so strange that you can advance the ball as much as you want, you can reach the end zone, you can score touchdowns, although it wasn't really called that at the time, but you score a touchdown. And today you get 6 points, great. Kick an extra point, that's an extra 1 point, and that's 7 points for your team. Back then, you could score a touchdown and you weren't awarded any points. You had to make sure that your kicker could kick it through the uprights or whatever and convert the kick. And if they didn't, then you didn't score any points. And so Yale did that twice during this game. We kind of talked about they were very much more able to advance the ball down the field, and they got into the end zone, whatnot. But they just couldn't convert their kicks, so they got 0 points. Princeton could not score at all, could not advance the ball at all during this game. And so they never reached the end zone. It ended up in a 0-0 tie. So I just find it really strange that there just wasn't any points awarded for ultimately reaching your goal. Like in life, there's always going to be these moments where you're trying to reach this ultimatum. You have this goal in mind. You're like, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. I'm going to climb this mountain, And back then, 1877, you didn't accomplish your goals apparently. Score a touchdown, that's not a goal, basically depleted, and you end up in a tie. Like, who wants a tie? So that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna move on to our national championships. We got to give it to Yale, I feel like, in this sense. I think Princeton obviously had a better strength of schedule, you might say, playing Harvard, Columbia, two top-notch opponents. Yale playing teams like Tufts, Stevens, Trinity College. Who knows what that is?
I know they were a combined 1-7, Yale's opponents that
Let's
year. They
go.
were they were terrible. They were terrible.
God awful. Yeah, but 3-0-1 beats 2-0-1. I think Yale, obviously, they have Walter Camp, best player in the country. They were able to advance the ball again, but they obviously couldn't score. And so I think just in general, Brian, I think you agree, but I think we got to say Yale on this one just because of their record, maybe not their strength of schedule, but I mean that happens throughout history. Like I feel like there are many football teams even today where they have beaten more opponents, even though their strength of schedule might not have been as heavy. They end up winning it just because they are the stronger team, even though their schedule doesn't say it. I also quickly want to talk about
Yeah.
they ended up Princeton ended up naming Woodrow Wilson, who was the 28th president of the United States, alum of Princeton. He was elected to the Tigers football director position. And you might be asking yourself as you're listening to this podcast, what is a football director? Well, back then, this could have been considered an athletic director. Even today, we're starting to have in college football general managers, have those in the NFL. But think of this as more of an athletic director, really helping to solidify schedules, build the team, help the coach, really just serve in a advisory liaison position. And Park H. Davis, we've kind of talked about throughout this series, very renowned historian of college football. He helped coach the team as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad that you mentioned Woodrow Wilson because a lot of political figures throughout our nation's history, a lot of them have college football backgrounds, including Woodrow Wilson. And I also want to touch on just the uniforms that were being worn at the time. So if you're
Go
watching,
look at the LinkedIn post, y'all. It's on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
you,
You can see
you
the
look.
picture we're talking about.
Yep, you could check out our LinkedIn post to see the whole article on what we're talking about. And I'm also sharing if you're watching on Spotify, this is the Yale team's uniforms for the 1877 season. So you have that Y in the middle, which I think is pretty cool. And then you have those
Youngstown
funky little
State.
hats. Yeah, Youngstown State right there. Yeah, and you have those funky little hats with the little top on. It almost looks like they're going to work at like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or something.
Oh man.
Um,
Yes,
and then
sir.
they have the baseball pants and kind of the baseball socks. And this was really what they were wearing during the games. This is not like, oh, just the uniforms or just the spring practice look. They didn't wear pads at the time and definitely didn't have helmets. So this was literally what they were wearing. So I just wanted to share that real quick just because I absolutely love the outfits of the 1870s and the college football kind of uniforms that were taking place at the time. It was really just so cool.
Hey, I'm no fashionista, but I think we got to bring this style back. You know that the tucked in shirts. You got it looks like a sweatpant to me. Like you could wear some sort of like champion jogger, like roll them up, put some socks up, wear the little hat, wear that to the Met Gala. Wear it to prom for their high schoolers out there, formals. I think that would be a rocking look.
Yeah, yeah, I think it would be too. So that was, that was the Yale team. That was that suffering defense team that existed in 1877. The reason Princeton couldn't score in that game.
Okay, idea as we're talking on the podcast.
Yes.
Feel free to let us know in the comments if you're listening or you want to comment. I think that Brian and I should dress up for Halloween next year as a Yale football player and a Princeton football player, and then we can hold up a sign throughout the night that says Hoboken, and we can kind of talk about that previous episode that you listened to before this about that whole Hoboken, and now here the Hoboken draw, all of those things. I think that would be a great Halloween costume.
I think that would be great. I want to find this uniform somewhere. We could put it together.
We could do it.
We could do it.
DIY it.
DIY it. We also for the 1877 season, we also have another unblemished recognition team that we want to throw out. So 1876, we talked about Rutgers being 1-0. They had one victory, a win over Stevens, but they're not even in consideration for the national championship. And never would be again outside of that first year in 1869. But in 1877, another team finished undefeated, and that was Amherst. They beat Tufts. Tufts was 0-3, so they were pretty bad. But Amherst did win a one game in their 1877 campaign. Obviously, we're not going to consider them for the national championship because of their schedule and their program at the time. But we will see a couple more unblemished recognition teams come up, and we'll talk about the reasons why we don't consider them for national championships. Because there are some programs that exist even today that go undefeated during certain seasons, but they don't have the strength of schedule to really back it up or the number of games to back it up. And some of them don't even argue that or claim a national championship either. So there's a lot of years that we'll talk about that type of stuff in retrospect of the whole sport.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Anything
I think
else?
we're done. I'm feeling good. That was a fire episode. Hope y'all enjoyed it.
That was a great episode. That was awesome. So that was the 1877 season. Our college football tradition national champions are Princeton and Yale. But if we had to pick one, Jacob and I agree on this one. It is the Yale Bulldogs and Walter Camp.
Heck yeah. I think quickly before we sign off, I always think that it would be really cool. You think the draw in Hoboken, 1877. I think it'd be really cool if you rolled some tape, overlaid it with the Clint Eastwood Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Do-do-do-do-do. Yeah, we need that in here. I think that let's travel back in time and instill that for the game. That can be their fight song.
That would be really good. Work on that jingle.
I'll work on that.
Work on that jingle. Oh man. Oh man. So that's the 1877 season. We'll catch you as we wrap up the 1870s and get into the later decades of the 1880s. And we'll talk about all those years and what that has meant for the sport going forward. But for Jacob Vanderford, I'm Brian Partika. This is a history of American college football.
Later, football lovers.